What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 5 of the First Strike podcast. Today, we talking about UFC 312, so let's get right into it. One of the worst cards I've ever seen in my life. The undercard was horrible. I was not a fan of it at all. Justin Tafa getting finished. Like, what was that? Come on, you're in your hometown, you're getting finished by an elbow. Come on, that was nonsense. This was a top-heavy card, literally a championship doubleheader that carried the card. In the main event, the champion, Drake Duplessis, defended his title against Sean Strickland. One of the worst performances I've ever seen in a title fight, period. Ever. Sean Strickland, you cannot talk like that and then show up and fight like that. He was talking about he's willing to die in the ring, they're about to go to war, and this man stayed behind the jab the whole fight. He was on cruise control. He was on autopilot. He literally couldn't get out of second gear. And he was losing. Like, I've never seen a fighter down on a lopsided scorecard, 4 rounds to 0, have fight with 0 sense of urgency. All credit to the champion, Drake Duplessis. I felt like he did what he had to do. He was throwing everything but the kitchen sink at Sean Strickland. And Sean Strickland, he was fighting so defensive. Literally one. Like, come on, my man. You're in a rematch for the championship middleweight fight in Australia. Like, give the fans something to see. A lot of times when the fans boo, I'm not a big fan of that. But in this case, it was warranted. Not for Drake, not for DDP, the defending champ, who was initiating the action, controlling the octagon, and he did what he had to do. But for Sean Strickland, he fought like he was ahead on the scorecards, and he was a champion trying not to lose. When you fight not to lose instead of fighting and trying to win, chances are you're going to lose. So for Sean Strickland, I think this was a horrible performance. After all the talk he was talking about in the press conferences, I think that it's very clear that his gimmick is up. And it reminds me a little bit of Colby Covington, because Colby Covington, he always played his character, this brash character, always trash talking everybody. And Sean Strickland, he likes to play this character of like an American badass that's willing to die, that's chaotic, he's a loose cannon. But when you show up and you fight like that destroys your gimmicks. When you have a gimmick and you're using that to sell fights, you have to perform. Honestly, even if he would have gotten knocked out and went out on his shield, he probably would have gained more fans and retained more credibility than the way he fought. Like, to stick and move throughout the whole fight. There was one notable moment in the fight that stood out to me, and that was when he broke his nose. Sean Strickland got his nose broken. I believe that was in the 4th round by Drake Duplessis. And honestly, that was the only notable moment of the fight. Other than that, it was DDP coming forward the entire fight, coming at him with kicks, with right hands, with looping punches, and Sean Strickland just trying to stick and move with a horrible 1-2 combo. It was jab, jab, jab all night. Like, come on. Where were your power punches? If at the end of the day, if you're a stand-up fighter and that's not working out for you, like, switch it up. Like, that's what one of the M's in MMA stand for. You got to mix the martial arts. You can't sit there obviously losing a striking battle and still like stick to the same strategy. Like, at the end of the day, this was very similar to the rematch, but half the output. In the original fight, Sean Strickland threw over 400 strikes. In this fight, he only threw over 200 strikes. He literally halved his output for no reason. If the first match was such a close fight, so competitive as it was, like, why would you not come here with the agenda to throw much? You know who to throw much more? You know who did throw much more? DDP, and that's why he's a champion. All credit go to the champion. What a phenomenal performance. The only thing that I would have liked to see would have been a finish. That would have been a nice feather in his cap. But honestly, he defeated Sean Strickland back-to-back, like in 2 rematches. Like, this was the second time he beat Sean Strickland, and he went at him with everything he had. Like, there was the point where he broke the nose that I love seeing him go for it. Like, he went for the finish. He was throwing flurries, and then he even mentioned at the post-fight press conference where he was trying to actually pace himself because he didn't want to, just exhaust himself going for the finish. So where do we go from here? What do I rank the fight? I think that for DDP, a stellar defense, a stellar performance. I give him a 9. I think he was pressing the action. He was throwing his looping punches. A lot of people say that he doesn't have technique, but I disagree. I think he has a phenomenal technique, and it's in the way that he blends the mixed martial arts. He's throwing punches from angles that you're not accustomed to. He's mixing it up with kicks. He's he's working you towards the cage, initiating the clinch, initiating the takedowns. Even though in this fight he didn't really grapple too much, I still think he did a phenomenal job of doing what he does and just being a tornado of violence. And that carried him to a lopsided decision win, and probably one of the best decision wins that I've seen in recent memory in terms of output from the champion. Like, he threw over 500 strikes. Like, what else can you ask for outside of getting a finish? Maybe if he would initiate a little bit more grappling, he might have been able to work his way into submission. But I do get it. Maybe he didn't want to gas himself out going for those takedowns. And if he's winning with the striking, why not stick to what's giving you the victory? So for DDP, I give him a 9, a phenomenal performance. And where does he go from here? I think that after the fight, he was calling out Alex Pereira, but I think that Alex Pereira has a lot to handle in his weight class. So I don't want to see DDP move up to light heavyweight. I would like to see him continue to carve out his legacy in the middleweight division. He's quickly developing one of the best resumes in middleweight history, finishing Israel Adesanya, finishing Robert Whittaker. Before that, he finished Darren Till. Like, this guy, he's on a 10-fight winning streak, and now beating Sean Strickland back to back. And Sean Strickland, this is a tough guy. He's been a top 5 competitor, former champion. So to beat him back to back, where does he go from here? I think that I would like to see him continue to carve out his resume. Like, he already has a legendary resume, but there's one person waiting in the wings, and that's Hamza Chimaev. I would love to see DDP take on the undefeated, he's not a prospect anymore, the undefeated contender that totally decimated Robert Whittaker. So I think that's the championship fight to make. I hope we don't have to wait all the way to October. That would be the perfect fight for International Fight Week in July. The undefeated Hamza versus the surging middleweight legendary champion DDP. Sign me up for that fight. In that fight, I think it's a pick'em fight. It's a very close fight, and it closely resembles what occurred in the co-main event, where you have someone with such a grappling intensive style like Hamza going against the champion that's more well-rounded. Styles make fights. So who's going to win that matchup? I think DDP, you're the man. All credit to you, sir. And I can't wait for the Hamza fight. I do think that's the last step in really cementing your middleweight legacy. And then after that, if Pereira is still the champion, then it makes sense to move up and wait. For Sean Strickland, I think that this should drop him out of the top 5. I mean, losing back-to-back fights to the champion. And one of the things with Sean Strickland that I'm noticing is he's constantly in boring fights. Like, this guy, I get it. You're very disciplined, and that's what got you to the show, so might as well stick to it. But at some point, you gotta like your character is so fun. Yeah, you draw fans because of that, but you're selling us wolf tickets. You're very similar to Colby Covington. The gimmick is up, like this American badass character that you're playing and then fighting like such a defensive style. Like, you're literally a turtle in a shell. I'm not a fan of it. It's a very boxing heavy, defensive, almost like an amateur boxer in the Olympics, like trying to point fight. And then when you're losing, even your coach is telling you to step it up and you're walking away. To get his nose broken and to that be the highlight of the fight, I think that tells you a lot about how this fight was. For Sean Strickland, I think that this should push him down all the way in the rankings. I don't want to see him in a title fight in any of the foreseeable future, especially as long as DDP is the champion. For him, I think a fight that makes sense, maybe someone like a Brendan Allen. I think that would be a very interesting clash of styles. But at the moment, I don't want to see him against any top contenders. I think that he should take some time off, really work on his style, and go back to the drawing board. But I think someone in the low top 10 rankings would make sense. I know that he fought Jared Cannonier before. That would have been a good fight. But when I think of the middleweight rankings, I think Brendan Allen. I think someone like Brendan Allen's a really good fight. Maybe a Michel Ferreira. I think that's another good, interesting fight, interesting clash of styles. But I think that he needs a notable win. Like, he needs a notable performance to really get back all the fans that he lost this past Saturday, because that was one of the worst championship performances I've seen in UFC history. So Sean Strickland, you put half the arena to sleep. Please get it together. Moving on to the co-main event. Like I said before, this was a championship doubleheader, and these 2 championship fights actually carried the event, in my opinion. The rest of the undercard wasn't really anything notable. But yeah, in the co-main event, the champion Zhang Weili defending her title against Tatiana Suarez, who was undefeated, the undefeated wrestling phenom. And if you saw my predictions prior to the fight, this fight went exactly as I predicted. Here in the First Strike podcast, we're MMA gurus. Like literally, word for word, I literally described exactly what would happen. So let me just play you a quick clip of my predictions so you can see what I said. I got Weili by decision. Better cardio, championship experience, better striking. I expect Suarez to get the takedown, but Weili's going to pop back up and build that lead in the third, fourth, and fifth round to win a comfortable decision. So you see, like I almost called it exactly what it was. I felt like Zhang Weili was gonna overwhelm her with her cardio and outwork her, outmuscle her, out-experience her, and it went exactly what I said. You know, Tatiana Suarez had one key to victory, and that was the takedowns. But once that was not working for her, she was completely exposed. I think that she started getting tired from Zhang Weili's defending with her stellar takedown defense. I think that in the stand-up there was no comparison, but she did landed some takedown against Zhang Weili, but she did not manage to keep her down on the floor. I think that Tatiana Suarez, she got pieced with a stand-up. Even in some of the scrambles, she got outworked, outpositioned in several places. One of the things Zhang Weili did very well in those wrestling exchanges, she kept getting the underhook, just getting the underhook to get back to her feet. And I think that as the fight started to get away from Tatiana Suarez, she also started to gas out, because when you have a grappling heavy style and is being defended against, that actually tires you out a lot more than striking or any other martial art, because you're constantly being defended against the takedowns, constantly going for takedowns, trying to create scrambles that are very exhausting. And I think that once Tatiana Suarez was started gassing out, couldn't get the takedowns, the writing was at the wall, and she actually started getting taken down herself. Zhang Weili became the first person in the UFC to take down Tatiana Suarez. So I think that tells you all about Zhang Weili. She's a machine, and she's honestly becoming one of the, if not the best women fighter in MMA right now. She defended her title with a stellar performance. It was a lopsided performance. The first round was very competitive, but after the second round, once she started going in with the burst, really stuffing the takedowns and outworking Tatiana in the wrestling scrambles, it was the writing was on the wall, and it was a victory that became very lopsided. The second round, third round, fourth, and fifth, I gave it all to Zhang Weili, and I was actually surprised that Tatiana didn't get finished, because she ate a lot of shots. She took a lot of damage, but all credit to her. You know, it was all her championship. This was her first championship title fight in the UFC, so she showed a lot of grit, a lot of toughness to stick in there for 5 rounds. Where did they go from here? Well, Zhang Weili, there's a lot of rumors of her fighting Shevchenko. I think that would be honestly a dream match in the women's division. I would love to see that. Sign me up for that. I think that she's cleared out her division. She's defended the title against top and undefeated contenders. For her to move up in weight to take on Shevchenko, who's pound for pound one of the best women fighters in the history of MMA, I think that would be a dream match, and now's a perfect time to do it. And I think that could headline a card or be a co-main event for International Fight Week. You guys see what I'm doing here? I'm selling the International Fight Week for the UFC. Like I'm almost like a matchmaker here at the First Strike podcast. So that's what I would like to see next for Zhang Weili. I think that would be a very competitive fight. They're both super well-rounded, and it's a pick-em fight. Overall, to me, this was fight of the night. It was very competitive. The first round, I think that as opposed to Strickland, Tatiana Suarez never stopped trying. She fought with a sense of urgency. She kept going for the takedowns. She even though she was getting hit and pieced up with the stand-up, she never stopped throwing strikes. She never stopped engaging. So all credit goes to Tatiana Suarez. I think that for her, I think activity is the key. Like, go back to the drawing board, but don't take too much time off. I know in her career she was supposed to get a title shot much sooner, but there's a lot of reasons why she there's big gaps between her fights. I think someone like Rose Namajunas, I don't know if they fought before, but I think that would be a very competitive fight for Tatiana Suarez. But I think that I would love to see her remain in the top 5 and fight another top 5 ranked fighter in the strawweight division. But overall, I think that this card was very lackluster, especially for the market of Australia. I think the other undercard was very underwhelming. Justin Tafa getting knocked out. I mean, what was that? Like, that was like a 20-second stoppage. He got finished with the elbow to the face. And other than that, like, the card was very, like, there was not much going on, like, not much to report. But probably one of the worst cards I've seen in recent history. If I had to rate this card out of 10, I would give it a 4. It was very top heavy, but only the co-main event delivered, and of course DDP. So performance of the night, I would give it a DDP. I think he tried his best. Fight of the night, I give it to the co-main event, which was Zhang Weili versus Tatiana Suarez. But flipping the page really quick, I'd be remiss if I don't touch on what's going on with Canelo. Canelo completely playing Jake Paul and and actually signing with Turk and Raya season for 4 fights. So tune in for that. I'm very excited to see who's gonna fight in May, and I'm very happy to see that the fight with Terrence Crawford is gonna go forward. So that wraps it up for this episode of the First Strike Podcast. If you love this and you want to see cultural MMA content, so much content coming. I post every single day, and every single week you get a new episode. Make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, because I'm here. I'm going to be bringing you guys interview. This is your brand new cultural hub for MMA. So make sure you tune in every Monday, a brand new episode. For those that tuned in for the Super Bowl, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. This is your boy, Marathon out. Woo!